So, can I tell you a quick story? It's about money.
Please do. I love money. I love money, by the way.
But if you ever start talking money, though, it gets gross, and it's just, I don't mean to do it, but things never go my way.
Okay.
I think I shared with you, but I got into this thing called Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and I lost the keys to the wallet, and it never works out for me, but I've spent largely this year committing to learning about call options, buying and selling puts, buying and selling calls, which was like this foreign language.
Yeah.
And I even had to get a mentor to help me in the YouTube videos and buy a book here and there, but I really committed to try to do this. And I did some very safe call options, largely so that I could just figure out how to push the buttons, learn the language, learn about intrinsic, extrinsic value, meet my dates. I got some Apple options. So the Apple options were getting close to expiring. And again, I didn't have to sell them because they were in the money, but I wanted to go in and sell them to learn the process of pushing the buttons.
Sure.
So once I sell them, I then go in and I rebuy other positions within Apple, which has a ticker name of APPL.
Okay.
Okay, great. Well, I do it, but then when I check my Apple, they haven't gone through. They took my money, but they didn't give me the shares.
Okay.
So I go in and I do it again. And it was the same thing. I would go check on Robinhood, my Apple. The money was gone, but it did not give me the shares. So I go to the history section, and sure enough, it was there that I had sold the positions in Apple, that I had rebought back in Apple, but they're not showing up as shares. Well, there's another stock, and the stock is APP. Yes, and it's called AppLovin. As opposed to Apple, it's called AppLovin. I would never buy into a company called AppLovin. That is like that joke from, was it Superbad when the dude was McLovin? You just want to do it. There's no company that could take itself serious. Soch, it is up 183% from the day that I pushed it. I don't know what an AppLovin is. So I go, and it never works this way. You never accidentally buy the better stock. Never. My luck never works that way. So I go and I look up what AppLovin is. It's owned by, I believe it was a Persian gentleman who's a younger guy, very handsome in Silicon Valley, personally worth $16 billion. He's one of these tech guys. I still don't know what the company does. In fact, if I was to read to you the description that it puts out about itself, you would have no idea.
Do you have that description? I'm just curious.
Yes, I will actually. As a matter of fact, I have gone on Google. I have tried to look this thing up. It pops up. You can find information. But you never find people like, oh, you got to go buy this here. Year to date. Now, I only got in, it was the day after the election.
Okay.
But year to date, this stock is, oh my God, I thought it was up 600%. It's up 824% on the year. In the last 3 months, this stock is up 300%, 294 to be exactly. In the last month, since I've been holding, it actually moved since we've been talking and went down. It's up 128%. In the last week, it's up 15%. Today alone, it is up 8%. It is called AppLovin. I don't know if you can see it, but it's APPL, which is the same exchange that Apple has. Now, you asked for a description. Let's see how they define themselves.
Yeah.
AppLovin Corporation engages in the development and operation of a mobile marketing platform. It offers app discovery, max adjustment. I don't know what that was. Its software-based platform caters to mobile application developers to improve the marketing and monetization of applications. The company was founded by Andrew Krom, John Krasinski, and Adam Foragi. In 2011, is headquartered in Palo Alto, California, and is listed it's AppLovin Corporation, Class A common stock. So it's APP App, where Apple is APPL.
L. Right.
That is my confusion. But if you go on Robinhood after you buy it, it will only show you the first 3 letters. So like if you had Meta, M-E-T-A, on Robinhood, it'll just M-E-T. So on mine, for the app stock, for both of them, it's APP. If you open it with further research, you will see Apple or you will see AppLovin. All right, you know what? I'm repeating myself, but is that amazing? It never goes my way. This one went my way.
I am so you. You have no idea. Like, I am just the guy that will make the mistake and it'll go down. Like every time I go to buy something, it's like or if I want to buy something, it's like the UFC. Okay. It's like the UFC betting. there are events that I go, boy, I think I pretty much have a handle on this one. I should probably bet it. And then for whatever reason, like the last UFC thing was taking place overseas and it was 9 a.m. I'm like, nah, I'm too lazy to call it in. I hit 6 for 6 and would have made a fortune. Other ones that I do bet, and then I'm talking and I'm like, let me just put another few hundred on it. Let me just put another, and then I just crash at the end. So it's like I zig when I should zag. I'm a zagger when I should zig. It's just the way I'm built. So I can identify with you on this one, but we need to take the win on this. And by the way, you mentioned the name John Krasinski. Do you know who that is?
It must not be the same guy, but yes, I do. Jim. He's Jim from The Office.
Yes. Well, we don't know that it's not the same guy because he's got his hands in a lot of stuff. He's a really smart guy. He's a big writer and director. He's got that series, the one of the horror movies where you can't speak, like they can't make any sound, which is a silent place. A silent place.
Silent place.
Yeah, he wrote that. He directed the first movie. I think I don't know if he's like Ryan Reynolds in the way that he has his hand in stocks and all that stuff in companies, but it might be the same guy. I'll look into it. Good for you. Are you going to hold on to it? What's the plan?
I am going to hold. I am, and that was one of the reasons that I went and did the research. Like I was going on YouTube and Google to see what some of these guys say. There's another stock out there that everybody is saying is the stock of the Trump administration. It's called Palantir.
Palantir.
Yes, and basically the gentleman that's making it is designing weapons where we can fight war without a human being. It all has to do with drones. So he's saying if you're going to send a fleet of aircraft in, stop training guys to be pilots. Stop building these. The aircraft has a bomb hooked to it. I can hook a bomb and everybody can stay home and we do it by remote control, which, I mean, what a scary world. But
what a scary world, right?
He is the leading person within this, and he's a little bit aggressive. He has a stance. I actually said something like this years ago in fighting. I'm sure he didn't get it from me, but I actually did say this years ago, which is they talk about this sport that we do is called self-defense. And I don't believe in self-defense. I believe in self-offense. If the person is bringing a fight, you don't have to wait for them to throw the first punch. It's self-offense. He actually said that on the higher level. He thinks that our Department of Defense should be renamed Department of Offense. That if our intel knows these people are going to attack us, the U.S. will only respond once they're attacked. And he said, no, a provocation is an attack. If they're invoking a fear or an attack, even emotionally, Let's go get them. Now, that's tough stuff. I'm not back. I'm just sharing with you, but this is the guy's stance. And he's developing the weapons. And if he teams up with Elon Musk, by the way, in the Space Force, whatever that is, actually turns out to be, I mean, there's something to this. I'm not advocating for it. I'm just sharing for you. I will go out to read about Palantir, and when I'm searching for app loving, Palantir pops up. I'll go to search on Tesla. Palantir pops up. Like, this is what the kids online are saying is the go-to stock of the next administration.
Wow. By the way, I'm going to go buy Palantir, and if I buy the wrong one, we'll have a really great conversation. If I buy like some palliative care thing that I didn't it's something that could happen. So I'll double check everything. Speaking of, you just said something to me that, and I'm not really a news guy. I know you're more of a news guy and you're sort of hooked into what's happening more in the world than I am. But I saw today a thing about, you said self-offense, right? And self-defense. The story of the kid that was in the subway, the retired Marine, and choked the guy out, right? And then the guy was alive when the paramedics got there, and now he's dead. And apparently, it's a white kid, Marine, and the other guy was a black gentleman, and he was in the subway acting crazy and threatening people, and the Marine put him in a chokehold that lasted quite a while, and the kid wound up dead. And I think the verdict's coming through today, or at least it's to the jury today. I mean, you've heard of this, yeah?
Oh, yes, of course. And I follow that pretty close. Talked to a lot of friends that are in New York, and they all unanimously tell me the jury will convict him, that they will put this guy in prison. So, I don't understand that. He was defending others. He's a hero. He's a Marine. He's trained. And the fact that he's white, one's black, he's alive, the other's dead. He said, no, it's not going to happen. In New York, they will put Penny is the kid's name.
Yes.
Yeah, and it sure seemed that, everybody was very unanimous that this guy was very threatful and that he was very scary.
Yeah.
And then the question comes to the technique itself, and did you hold it too long? Did you not hold it too long? Those things do get a little bit weird. Like how are we going to debate if it was held too long? The guy's dead. Yes, it was held too long. Is that inappropriate? Am I held to a standard that I'm supposed to know
Right.
how long? And then the police, when the police go and shoot somebody, they use an interesting speak. They won't get down to, did I hold it too long or did I not? They will only say, I stopped the threat. And they will never go beyond that. Well, how many times did you shoot him? Well, why did you shoot him 8 times? Why did your part? I stopped the threat. I get it. That's a good way to speak. Daniel Penny is his name. I mean, he saw a problem. He stepped in, which most would not do. And when you're in those situations, you don't know what's next. You don't know if he's got friends with him. You don't know if he's got a knife in his pocket. He's reaching for, when the guy starts moving, you don't know if he's reaching for a 9mm. You're doing your best to stop the threat, which he successfully did. But is that a crime? And it's very interesting, man. I would tell you that's a very interesting one in my perspective that he even got to this point. He tried to help somebody and he succeeded in doing that.
It got to the point, Chael, from what I understand. And again, like I just saw this. So, I'm not an expert by any means, but apparently there were they didn't even go pick the guy up until 10 days later when the shitstorm started, right? When the picketers really started and making noise in New York and called this, really started to, scream for justice. And then the police went and picked him up because I believe from all accounts of the people on the subway that day, this guy was considered a hero. I don't think there was one person that was on that subway that testified differently. I think everybody was like, we were scared and he was going to hurt somebody. He was promising to kill somebody that day and didn't care about going to jail. And this guy saved women, other people not being able to defend themselves, whomever, on that subway. So, boy, it's a tough thing. And I think you're probably right, and he probably will get convicted. It's New York. There's a lot of pressure probably on them to convict in this case, and it's a tough one, man. He seems like a normal, level-headed kid from what I saw. It's unfortunate.
Hunter Biden was pardoned, and Daniel Penny is going to be convicted. And it is one of those tough spots. I will tell you, I've lived through that, where you will get a group of people, and because of your training or because of your life, instead of somebody thinking, all right, sometimes when there's a problem, you need a tough guy around. Instead of being appreciative for that tough guy has training that this person did not have. And that's a weird dynamic. Like, 2 people go head to head. They want to go head to head, and one of them wasn't as good at it as the other guy.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those spots where I go, okay, but let's ask a further question. He wanted to be just as good at it. Why wasn't he? He didn't do the training. He didn't make the sacrifice. There's a lot of things to have the skills that Daniel Penny had that really was not a fun life to develop those skills. Whatever he saw, whatever he went through defending this country, he comes home and he defends the subway and they're calling him a murderer. And that's tough, man. That's a very tough one to hear.
It reminds me of the Tom Cruise movie, Born on the 4th of July, It's like you're a kid, you're 18 years old, 19 years old. My dad was 19 when he got drafted into the Korean War. He didn't want to go to the Korean War. Trust me, he wanted to stay with his girlfriend, in Rhode Island and mind his own business. But he got drafted, he went there, and he fought, and he did what he had to do. And I think with Vietnam especially, the protesters calling them baby killers and all these other things when they got back. Can you imagine that position? You got drafted, they've strapped a gun to you, they taught you how to fight, you did your thing, you protected the country, and then you're the bad guy. And it's a little bit like, again, I don't know all the details, but it just felt like a little bit like that to me with this Daniel Penny situation. It just looked sad from what I saw. It looked kind of, I feel for the guy, and he could get up to 15 years in prison. I mean, it's serious manslaughter.
No, it's very tough. And I'll also remind you, this is a state charge. So even if an adult was to step into the room and try to give a pardon, you can't. It's not a federal case. It's a state charge. So that also becomes a little bit more complicated. And I don't know what this jury is going to find, but from the people I talked to in New York, they are very clear that New York is against it. That he found himself in this situation, but he enjoyed this situation. He was one of those guys that fantasized that these things would happen. It's just very strange. I find that to be a very strange that you would even go to that point or even have that discussion. Now they got experts that have come in and said the guy did not die due to the choke.
That's right.
And that there was other things or things in his system. And whether that's a reworking of it or not, I'm just sharing for you. If he's in there for killing the guy from a chokehold, and we've got experts saying the chokehold did not kill the guy, it seems like we all got to get up and walk out of the room, but they're not.
No, they're not. By the way, the one bone, and I don't know the name of the bone, but anytime somebody is choked to death in a strangulation case, this bone is very simple. It's very easy to break in the neck. And it wasn't broken in this case. Yeah, it wasn't broken. This was a blood choke. You know what I mean? This was a blood choke,
Sure.
not a breaking of a neck. So just, wow, what an unfortunate situation. On a more exciting topic, however, it is fight week. And I'm starting to see that I think this 310 card is really something. What puzzles me a little bit, and what I saw, and I'm sure you have an opinion on it, is the Weidman of it all. You know, like it's Chris Weidman is on the undercard, which, by the way, in the UFC's defense, they have been making a lot of they build out that undercard to really promote the main card. There's been some very big fighters on the undercard. Now, this one has Weidman and it has Sterling on undercard, both of them. But also, so is, what's his name? There's another one. Oh, Lionheart Smith is on the undercard. But Weidman specifically felt, because he spoke up about the pay situation for not getting his full pay or whatever he calls it from the last event when Eric Anders couldn't fight. Do you think there's any like payback? I mean, he's hinting at the fact that the UFC might have been upset with him and we'll show you, we're going to put you on the undercard, former champ. What's your thought on that?
I actually didn't know that Chris had spoke up and said that, but I will tell you this just for consistency. He was on the undercard at MSG. That was not a main card fight. So when they lost that fight, they booked the same guys and they kicked the can. They spotted them both 10 pounds. They said, hey, listen, you don't have to cut so much weight over the holidays. We'll do it at 195 instead of 185. And my understanding of this is the winner leaves, but the loser also leaves. It's one of those situations. I believe that Weidman is saying goodbye, and he really wanted to do that in New York. I would have loved to have seen him on a main card. But as far as a payback, I don't know if I could quite accept that, only because he was scheduled to be undercard. They redid the fight. He's in the exact same position. And one thing about the UFC, Social, and this has been very tough. From day one, Dana has always said, the best are going to fight the best. And what he was really speaking was about boxing and loading records and blowing with your biggest star. And he said he made a brand promise, and many people didn't think he could keep it, including Vince McMahon. Just said, no, it does not work that way. You got to put the momentum behind your big guys, and you got to keep building them. And I'll only share for you, it largely does have to do, okay, tonight. If tonight and everything goes well, where could that take you? How much further forward can that take you? And that's where they start to place the card. And if Weidman, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame and had an amazing career, but if he in fact is retiring, then it would not necessarily make the most sense to shine him up and put him in a fancy position that you couldn't parlay. That very argument I just made for you, though, I wouldn't make for Aljo. I think that Aljo still can be champion. I feel like he is being overlooked. Historically, if you're champion and you go to a new division, you got to win one fight. But if you win it, you fight for a title. Alex Pereira just happened with it at 85. Kamaru Usman was in the spot. He went up. They said, if you win this fight, you'll go fight for a title. It's generally just one. Aljo's already won two, and now he's got the deck stacked against him. I think he's going to do great in this fight. But I think maybe they're missing that. I don't feel a world champion that's got the potential to come back. I think maybe Aljo was overlooked.
Yeah, I do. I think it's a big difference. And, Weidman, he has publicly now stated that, he sort of hinted around about it, but he was somewhat direct about saying, I spoke up and maybe I'm being punished. And that would be sad because he's had an amazing career and he's had a good relationship with the UFC. Looking at this, I'm so puzzled by the main event. I'm a little bit, okay, maybe you can explain it to me. We got Asakura, right? He would be the first of all, I didn't know this, he would be the first Japanese champion in the UFC. That's amazing to me. I didn't know that was true. To my eye, when I watch his highlight reel, he looks like a world beater to me, okay? I love his story. I love where he came from, how he started fighting with his brother being a street fighter and his brother roping him into the world of street fighting and just strapped some gloves on him. And right away, the kid showed potential. He is a true fighter in his heart. He looks great. And people are saying Pantoja, he's more well-rounded, the ground game, etc. But when I look at this Asakura, all I see is future champ. Now, again, I've been wrong. I've thought this about so many fighters that were like, that guy's invincible or that woman's invincible, and I'm wrong. I zig when I should zag, Chael. Am I zigging when I should zag here when I say that Asakura just looks like a world beater?
Okay, there's a few things that I hope we can all establish here. Number one is I despise the ranking systems. And I don't despise it from that we should have a ranking. I despise that we came in with a ranking system and then the fighters, the supposed tough guys, use the ranking system to get out of having to do hard fights. Yeah, I'm ranked number 6. I don't have to fight that guy. Like, we can't get a top 10 guy to fight Bo Nickel. And their argument is, well, he's not even ranked. What good would it do me? When the truth is, I'm scared of this guy that's not ranked and I don't think I can beat him. And we all understand that, but it is infuriating. And I will just share for you, apparently we're not following that code anymore, because as good as Asakura is and whatever nice things you want to say about him, he is not ranked. He is not ranked anywhere. So if we can take a guy that is not ranked in the top 15 and put him against the champion, then we can take an unranked Bo Nickel and put him against the number 6 guy. So if we're all as a community going to co-sign that statement, I'll drink to the whole thing and I'm fine with it. Asakura, what a hard spot. I mean, to debut in the UFC, it's very rare that you look good. In fact, it's why they call Randy Couture the natural, because he could play on day one. He was a natural. To have a debut like Justin Gaethje had, where you're playing to the audience, flipping the guy off, and they take you right into the set of The Ultimate Fighter because you broke in so hard. There's not a lot like that. Like, no matter how good you are, you generally will underperform. Vanderlei had a hard time his first time. Hector Lombard had won 22 in a row. I mean, just for example, it's a different feel. It smells different. It looks different. You do inside feel something different. And imagining that you could go into a main event, you're going to walk out later on the same card as world champions like Chris Weidman and Aljo. You're closing over the top of them, and then to think that you could win a world title. I mean, it really is what dreams are made of. It's an amazing thing. And with all of that said, I'm not sure he's not the right guy. I'm not sure he's not. You put 100 guys into a room, 1 hour later, they will all know who the baddest dude in the room is. You and I, we just know. We would know this number 2 and number 3, and we'd have our little hierarchy, and that whole alpha thing would take over. All I can tell you about Asakura, there is not a single 125-pounder that has spoke up, not one word, to say he should not have this. I have earned this. I have the ranking. I've traveled the roads. They all stood back when he got signed and said, go get your opportunity and we'll play from there. I've got to take those guys at their word. They're experts and they are not complaining.
How good is Pantoja? I mean, like, because, okay, when I look at this fight card, I see two things that are very similar. I see Asakura being hoisted to this position, right, which is a difficult position, like, but the reward would be massive. Can you imagine coming in your first fight and taking the belt? Like, I mean, just wow, what a superstar born tomorrow. I mean, Saturday night, a superstar could be born. I also see Shavkat Rakhmonov as the boogeyman, and Chael, as much as I love the guy, and yes, he's a badass, there's no question about it, I don't see the evidence of this guy being the boogeyman that nobody wants to fight. Why does nobody want to fight him? He beat Jeff Neal, right? But what he gave like a bulldog choke or something and beat him, okay? And he beat Wonder Boy, right? Which was a decision, I believe. He choked out Wonder Boy. He was the first person to submit.
He did finish him. 3rd round, yeah.
2 great accomplishments. But does that make him the boogeyman? Because as far as I can see, every fighter in his weight class, nobody wants a piece of him. Bilal was going to fight him. He got sick. But like, is this guy, I asked the same question. Asakura looks, again, like a world beater to me. To me, the opposite. Shavkat looks great, but I don't think he's proven himself yet to be the boogeyman. Is he that good, and why? And what do you see that maybe we don't see? Or what would the fighters in that division see in him?
And he's definitely on the slow rise, but there's been other guys that took the long road.
Yep.
Chuck Liddell, by example. Yep. But when Chuck finally got there, I mean, he was the most recognizable face in our entire sport. Guys were going mohawks and dressed as Chuck Liddell for Halloween. Yes. I mean, once he finally got there, and I do feel like Rakhmonov is going to be the same way. If he, in fact, can capture a world championship, I do believe that he's going to be very massive. But it is the slow road. So when you talk about the boogeyman, right, generally the boogeyman has a couple of things. You watch him, and he looks really good, but it's in conjunction with people don't know who he is. People don't respect him. So That's the guy that a fighter really does not want to fight. If I beat this guy who's a stud, I'm not going to get enough of a pop because people don't know how good he is. But the other hand, if I lose to a guy, people don't know if Rachmanov is his first name, last name, or his nickname. I mean, we know nothing about this guy. He does not do interviews. It's not a matter of he'll do an interview and then you got to get a translator. He doesn't do the interview in his language, their language, or any language. It's a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
It would have been a very difficult press week to have Rachmanov on stage with Blahal. It was just one of those things. But golly, he's beat 19 men in a row, 19 out of 19, and so she finished them all. That's folklore. When I was growing up, you'd hear about somebody from 100 years ago that could do something like this. I mean, it's folklore. The guy has got something. And I feel like, Chimaev was in that division at one point too. We could have got those two guys together, but purposely they were kept apart. And maybe that was the right move. But every now and then it's hard to get the actual matches that we want. Ian Gary used to train with him. Ian Gary knows how this fight is going to go. But he's agreed to do it anyway. He's agreed. He feels that, even in a training situation, you never go higher than about 90%. And Ian Gary feels like, hey, there was some openings and I didn't take them. And that in of itself is very interesting for me. And they're both undefeated. Ian Gary hasn't finished everybody, but there's 15 up and 15 went down. I think it's a very interesting match. I think that's the true people's main event. That's the one that people are looking forward to the most. I think the winner goes and fights for a world title. But to your point on Rachmanov, is he the boogeyman? Yeah, but the ingredients are you're really good and really unknown. That is the recipe that nobody wants to deal with.
That's really interesting. So in that fight, though, you like Rachmanov.
I like Rachmanov.
You do.
I like him largely because they've already done it. They train together every day. They both understand this. The people that were there understand this. And people love to say the training room's not the same. Well, yeah, it really is. It's actually the absolute closest thing you could ever have to the real thing is the sparring session. So, yeah, I like him from that regard. But I will acknowledge that Ian Gary does rise to the occasion. I will also acknowledge that Ian Gary, after leaving the gym, got some really good advice in a different realm. For example, going to Brazil, Damian Maia specifically adding to his ground game. I can't make believe that 8 months is enough time, but Ian does think he knows something. And Ian's been right every single time so far. Yes. So it's very hard to discount him.
Yes, it is. Definitely a very good fight. And the main event's a good fight because, again, we don't know much about, Asakura. It's like we've seen his highlight reel and all that, but we don't really know. And Pantoja, look, he's beaten a who's who in the division. So if you gun to your head, you got to make a bet. Do you go? You're with Pantoja on that one?
Yeah.
Okay, you're with Pantoja.
Got to go Pantoja. Hey, listen, I don't know enough about this Asakura. I mean, physically, he looks pretty good, but quite frankly, all those 25-pounders are better than anything I ever had to deal with. I never had to deal with the top guys when I was fighting. The 10th guy at 125 was more dynamic and faster and craftier, and he looks really good, but being really good and then being able to compete are very different things. And I'm just telling you, man, the fight capital of the world, sold out. Dana White believes in you enough. The boss puts you as the main event. That's a lot. That's a lot to put on a guy.
It's a lot.
And by the way, of all the things that we've learned since 1993 when they got this idea to put these different martial arts against each other, I can tell you as a wrestler, we were very surprised. I did not know that wrestling was effective. Like, we really did learn a lot. But one of the bigger surprises is how bad Japan sucks at fighting. I mean, we had always been told, right? Even if it was Hollywood and it was in the form of movies, we were still led to believe that the secrets of the martial arts all come from Japan. Those guys are terrible. They have all been terrible. And as I get to thinking about it, I don't remember a boxing medal that they've ever won in the Olympics. I'm told they do well in judo. I don't follow it. I couldn't contest it. I went and looked up their taekwondo, which I've always been told does great. They don't have any medals in that either. Like, Japan and martial arts do not go hand in hand. I don't know why those guys are terrible. I have my own theories. I think it has to do with diet. I think that the eating of rice as opposed to eating of protein, it will take you 100 years to birth that physiology back in, but I can't prove that. That's just like some very loose theory. All I can tell you is Japan was not the secret for martial arts. The whole thing was a scam. And we believed it, right? Steven Seagal went over to Japan and he trained, and therefore he knows more than all of us. We all thought it was true. And now here we are realizing, man, you guys have not only never won a championship, you've only fought for it one time. Yushin Okami is the only Japanese guy to even make it to the finals match. And I would like an explanation on that. I would like to know why we were told for all these years how great they were. And when it actually got tested, it turns out they suck.
Okay, so Pride, right? Look at Pride. Okay, so you got Sakuraba.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not. Okay, so Sakuraba's Japanese. I don't know, I think maybe he was a champ. And Takanori Gomi.
Yep.
Also. And I kind of know this. I've been refreshed of this watching the countdown to this fight and showing. It's funny, Chael, because what they did in the countdown show was they propped up the Japanese MMA scene to try to let, for the average viewer and the average fan to go, this kid's legit. He comes from a legit lineage and heritage of fighting. And like they really propped it up. Have I been fooled? Oh, man. Okay, so. Looking at Pride, though, Pride must have had Japanese champs. They must have. And that was a pretty big organization.
Right.
We can agree, right?
You would think that, but they didn't. That's the thing. They didn't. You would think that they did. All of their champions came in, whether it was Krokop from Croatia, whether it was Fedor representing Russia, whether it was Nogueira representing Brazil, whether it was Vanderlei from Brazil, whether it was Dan Henderson representing California. They didn't have any Japanese champions. And Sakuraba did have his run. That guy had a very special style, man. He had poise and he had everything. I followed the sport from day one, and I have heard time and time again how great Gomi was. I'm not looking to be a dick about it. I've never seen it. I don't know what the big deal is. The one time I actually got to see Gomi fight, Nick Diaz choked him out with a move that I've never seen before. I'm told, though, of how great Gomi was, and I will accept it. I'm just sharing for you. When you talk about they must have had champions, they did not.
Yeah.
They did not have champions. And if there was some guy that early on they could get a belt around, and believe me, they were willing to pay for it.
Right.
They were willing to pay for it, and even rigging the deck, I don't think they ever had a champion. I don't know that Sakuraba had it. I know Sakuraba was the guy, but I'm not positive he ever had the title. Maybe he did, and I know when Vanderlei fought him, maybe Vanderlei took the belt from him. I remember that wrong, but I'm not positive even he had it.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I'm not looking to like insult an entire culture. I'm trying to figure out where this came from. Why did I believe that my whole life? Why was that a really big deal? It came from the movies. It came from Hollywood and nowhere else. Yes.
This idea that martial arts is, very much an Asian culture thing, which probably is. I think it originated there, right? I don't even know. I don't know. I don't know what happened. But we all believe when you think, okay, Japan, it's like karate, kung fu, China, karate, the other way. China's kung fu, Japanese is karate. And those were the dominant sports, right, back in the day, which nowadays, if beyond maybe Wonder Boy, who's doing karate, even the karate classes the kids are taking are now turning over to MMA. And you brought up a really interesting point, too, that you guys didn't know that wrestling was going to be so dominant. And it has been proven, yes? Like wrestling, if you had one skill to have and to be dominant in the UFC, wrestling would be your discipline of choice.
Yep.
And it works. Question, because you have a heart out, and I'm going to remind you of it now, but I'm going to ask you a question. You said earlier, Japan, not the best at
Terrible. I said it turned out they suck. And then I gave an exception to my guy, Yushin Okami.
Yes.
But the rest of them turned out they suck.
Okay, got it. Yes, sir. Right? Okay. So my question to you, Chael, is if you had to back any country, you had to be like, there were teams and there were factions, and it was like, but you can't pick America. Okay. Give me your top 3 countries that you back as UFC. If you were like, Chael, every time these people win, you win. Who do you go with first? Is it Brazil? Is it Russia? Like, where do you go?
Okay. And I will do just that. I will exclude the United States because that would be my very clear choice. But I'll tell you an overlooked one is Cuba.
Ooh.
Cuba can produce some fantastic athletes. And I'm talking about in baseball, in boxing, in fighting, in judo. They don't all get recognized. And a lot of them can't ever get out of the country for political reasons to really show that skill. But I'm going to put Cuba in there. It will be no surprise to you that I will put Russia in there. And one that people do overlook, but if you go and you look at the medal count at the Olympic Games, China does not play. And I'll give you a quick story, Soch, and I wish I had more to this, but I don't. When Beijing hosted the Olympics in 2008, they had all sorts of medals across the board. And, you get a little of home cooking with the officials. That's the way every sport goes. But China had a story. They got assigned the Olympic Games 12 years prior. And they were not overly known for athletics, but they wanted to do this. And when they did it, they wanted to showcase themselves. So the government got people that drove to the different villages. They would call the kids over and they would put these kids through different tests. The only one that I can remember was they'd have a kid put his hand out like this and they'd put a quarter in his hand. And they'd stack another quarter and another quarter and another quarter. And there was a number, and I want to say it was 12. It wasn't all that high. But if you could get to 12 quarters without that falling over, they would take and they would put you into the shooting.
Hand-eye.
You'd go to the shooting club. But they had all sorts of these tests. And okay, this guy, we're going to put him into powerlifting. This person, they're going to join the volleyball team. I wish I knew more about what the government did and what they looked for to know what classifications to put these kids in. But if you accepted and you were the parent, they took that child to a training center.
Wow.
That is where they ate, slept, and got their schooling. In exchange, your family was promised 3 bags of rice a week. And parents would let their children go. And 12 years later, they were dominating the Olympic Games. And it's a really interesting thing. China will not let somebody leave the country unless the government has assessed them and they believe that person could bring back a gold medal. You see Wei Li and it's like, well, China's first great fighter. It's like, no, China's got a lot of them. The country does not let them go to be an also-ran. It's all about gold. It's very, very tough. And they've got very good athletes and they have a very good system. They have very good coaches. I'm going to put China. I'm going Cuba, Russia, China.
Wow. Okay. So first of all, China, let's say the word would be the reason they would probably be number one is discipline. Yes. Just disciplined lifestyle. And I think like that speaks to everything, right? They say you don't need motivation. You need discipline, right? People need discipline to win at anything. So China has the most physicality wise, Cuba.
Absolutely.
Yes. Difficult lifestyle leading to the ability to fight for your life and being able to, like if you're raised in Dagestan, it's not a cush lifestyle, right? I think we can agree that Russia has that mentality. I'm a little surprised you didn't put Brazil in there just for pure numbers and the ability to win the most. I mean, jiu-jitsu being so dominant there, but where does that rank? Would that be 4 for you?
Brazil would be in there. I definitely wouldn't overlook them, and they've earned a seat at the table, but it's not quite the same thing with Brazil, only in that the schools get behind it. In PE class in Brazil, you could have jiu-jitsu class or they will offer judo. And so there is just a level of exposure. But Brazil very much, and it's the thing that cost them, is about technique. Technique and being smarter and looking at this like chess wins the day and oversees everything. And that's a nice thing to tell a group of people, but it isn't true. The strong guy that is willing to stay in there and grind it out, which is where the Russians come in. Technique is second and third. And then you've got the Americans. I know we left America out, but America in front of everything is conditioning. We're going to throw more at you and more on you. And if you can't get to the ball when the referee blows the whistle, we'll just beat you that way. So it's a very different approach. If Brazil did have a little bit more of that, quite frankly, it comes down to marijuana. Marijuana and jiu-jitsu are so culturally tied together in Brazil. And I know you get a lot of stoners out there that say it doesn't make you lazy. Yes, it does. If you took the pot out of Brazil and you left the jiu-jitsu, they would go to number one. But hand in hand, it's just not going to work.
Super interesting. We may or may not talk before the fight. Either way, we got our picks for the fight. We're going to see what happens, see how badly I did or how good you did or whatever. I'm going with Asakura, by the way. Just FYI. Just letting you know. For fight night, I'm on the Asakura train. And I could look silly. I'm going to go Rachmanov only because of what I hear about him. I don't know. Ian Gary seems like great, but I don't know. And lastly, do you think Weidman's going to get it done against Anders, right, in his final fight? You do. You're quite sure. Huh. Okay. Interesting. I can't bet against my boy Chris, so I'm going to join you on that one. But either way, hopefully we talk before then. I know you have a heart out. My guy, it was incredible talking to you.
I haven't looked at the line, but I would suspect if we did, Aljo is the least likely. I would suspect that he is an underdog. I also, blindly, without even knowing his opponent very well, I disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think they are overlooking Aljo. I think that's a player. He used to be the world champion. That was one fight removed. That was one shot. He didn't even get his ass kicked in a fight. He took one shot. I think he still might be the best guy in the world. I'm going to roll with Aljo as well.
That's right. That was that whole thing about, go, Aljo, you got to go now. You know, that whole kind of thing. By the way, I'm looking at the odds real quick. And the first thing that comes up on the fight odds on like CBS is, you probably can't see it, but it's a photo of a skeleton, like a broken jaw that Asakura broke somebody's jaw, like, and it's pretty severe. Rachmanov and Gary. Rachmanov is a minus 375 favorite. Gary is a plus 310 underdog. Cyril Gane and Alexander Volkov, they fought before. Gane won. So therefore, he is a minus 335. I like Volkov with these numbers, plus 295.
I do too.
Yeah. Bryce Mitchell and Kron Gracie. Jiu-jitsu versus jiu-jitsu. Kron Gracie doesn't have a great stand-up. Bryce Mitchell's stand-up is considerably better. Mitchell is minus 700 against Gracie's plus 550. That is severe. Nobody's thinking in the world of fight picks that he is going to win that fight. And then you have the prelims, Dominic Reyes and Anthony Smith.
That's the fight right there. I cannot believe that isn't a more of a feature match. That is a bludgeoning coming up.
Couldn't agree more. Smith, underdog, plus 275. I think that's warranted. I do like Dominic Reyes in that fight at minus 325. Vicente Luque is fighting a kid. I don't know much about him, but his last name is Garimbo. Garimbo's a favorite in that one against Luque. He looks like a tough kid. Yeah, they're featuring him a lot on the Embedded series. And then you have the Movsar Evloev versus Aljamain Sterling. Here are the numbers. Evloev, minus 250. Sterling, plus 210. I mean, I know Evloev is great, but I take Sterling on that with those numbers for sure. That's a little crooked. From an ex-champ, come on, who hasn't really lost a lot, like you said, that's a little unfair.
Yes. Of everything that you would put forward, if there is a prop bet out there where you could get odds, I am very confident in telling you Lionheart versus Reyes does not go to the distance. That is probably my strong. I'm even stronger against that than I am that Rachmanov will win.
Wow. Okay, good.
There is a bludgeoning coming, and it's going one way or the other. Anthony Smith just lost his jiu-jitsu coach. This guy was 53 years old. He's tied to Anthony's career. He has never not been with Anthony. Anthony, in fact, went as far as to say this is as hard as when I lost my mother.
Oh, boy.
The gentleman went to sleep one night. There was no any foul play. He went to sleep, and he never woke up. He went the way we would all like to go, but he's got a family. He's got 2 daughters at home, both with special needs. I mean, this is about as tough as the story gets. For Anthony Smith to go through with this is because he thought it's what this guy would want. I mean, that fight's not going the distance. I don't know who's winning it, but I'm just sharing. When you bring that kind of emotion, it goes one way or the other.
Do you think it has any chance of helping Anthony Smith? I don't know. I mean,
yes.
You do. Oh, just because I'm going to win 4.
I'm going to dig deep. I mean, Buster Douglas credits when he beat Mike Tyson. He said it that night to this day that this was because of my mom. I mean, there is something to that. Historically speaking, it's not a good idea to fight with this kind of stuff, but he's going to, and it will go one way or the other. It's not going 15 minutes. That I feel, that's my strongest pick for you today.
I'm going to make that bet, by the way. I'm going to bet through my app. And I'm going to make that bet, and I will report back, but I'm going to put money in. I'm going to hope I don't zig when I should zag on that one. I'm trusting you, and I believe you in that one as well. So I'm going to pick all the other ones. I'm going to show you the card next time we speak. We'll see how I did. I might be a rich man the next time you see me. By the way, you might be a rich man because of the Palantir. What is it called?
Palantir and App Lovin'. Whatever App Lovin' is. Thank you, App Lovin'.
By the way, how funny is it, like, in 5 years from now, the big story of Chael Sonnen isn't your amazing fight career, not your podcast career, but how you got rich off of App Lovin'.
It never goes that way. I probably shouldn't brag to you, but it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to be doing all this research. Hey, I'm right. Oh, wait a minute. I bought a different stock, but it's got the very similar symbol. Anyway, I thought you should hear it. I missed you, buddy. It was good catching up. I'll see you next week.
Absolutely, pal. See ya.